Okay, thanks. Hi, everybody. This is Allison Durton. Most of you know, but if you don't, I'm with the technical documentation team. And for today's tech talk, I'm going to be telling you about the usability testing we recently conducted on books online and application help and the findings that came out of that testing. It was really exciting to see users in action, actually using the help. That's not something I've ever seen before, but also a bit painful to see their struggles. So we're really excited about the findings, that the outcome of it, and using implementing those findings to improve books online and our application help. Okay, next slide, please. So background of the test, the last time usability testing was performed on books online was prior to the DeltaV's first release, and that was fall of 1996. So it's time to be tested again. And TechDoc partnered with the user experience team. Myself and Aaron Thames and Grace, we partnered together to develop and administer the usability testing. It was mainly exploratory testing intended to evaluate our users' general experience with books online and application help. And our main purpose was to discover how the quality of DeltaV help could be improved so that our users can effectively and efficiently achieve their goals with our software and hardware. Okay, next slide. So our goals for the test, our ultimate goal, of course, is our customer success. So we wanted to evaluate how effectively our end user documentation helps users fulfill their responsibilities when using our software and hardware, and evaluate how successfully users can find the information they need in the help. Okay, next slide, please. So again, some more background on what we did for the test. Testing took place in the week of November 16th through 20th, and we recruited participants from the Ed Center. We had volunteers volunteer to do this. And all of the tests were conducted remotely, obviously, through Microsoft Teams. And participants accessed the DeltaV help through a virtual machine provided by the Ed Center. We used a mural workspace to capture participants' comments and moderator observations. And all of that qualitative data was collected, again, through the comments and the observations that we made of their engagement with the product. And then when we analyzed the data, we started by looking for patterns across all of the participant comments and all the administrator observations. And from that, we identified top findings and key takeaways. Then we developed recommendations for improving the help based on those key takeaways. Okay, next slide. So as you can see, we had 9 participants, again, all from the Ed Center. And we initially had 13 sign up, and they were actually real excited about it. And we ended up being able to test 9 people, and that's a pretty good number. It's a really good number for a usability test. And as you can see here, we had participants from various employers in various job roles. We had different years of experience with DeltaV, ranging from 0 to somebody with 20 years. And we also asked them the number of times they use help per month, and that ranged too from I don't use it at all to I use it 4 or more times a month. So that kind of gave us a good idea and had a good diverse group there. Okay, next slide. So what we did during the test is we gave them tasks to perform and allowed us to observe their experience with navigating the help. The first task asked them to find information on how to do something very specific, and it also helped us focus on their launching experience. How did they launch the help? How did they access it? The second task asked them to find specific reference information, and then once they found that information, we asked them to examine the content on that page. And then the third task also asked them to do something specific and then to examine the content on that page as well. After each task, we asked participants scripted, open-ended questions that helped us understand the choices they made while performing those tasks. And then at the end of the test, we asked some follow-up questions, just general questions that covered things like, what help tools they use most or find most useful. Do they have internet access when they're working? What is their experience with other help systems? Their overall experience with the DeltaV help, and what would their perfect documentation experience look like? Okay, next slide. So what did we find out from all of this? Next slide, please. All right, our key takeaways, our main overall key takeaway was that users cannot quickly and successfully find the information they're looking for. As you can see, these are our key takeaways that they all fall basically under that. Related to the tools, the current search engine is weak and not very useful. Users need to be taken quickly and directly to the info they need. The experience of launching help is confusing. Users want access to both online and offline help. They want a way to useful bookmarking and on and on. I'm not going to go read through each one of these. What I would like to do, let's see, go to the next slide. So we found out what's mostly working for them is, or for a lot of users, is they like screenshots, contextual help, drilling down to in the table of contents is a good tool for them, and they like the extensive content that we have. What wasn't working for them was the navigation, takes too long to find what they need, and the content is very wordy. This was a very big one. Not wordy in that it was too much information, because they liked that, but that the way it was organized, too many long paragraphs and things like that. And of course, the search engine not working for them. And then this just shows you some of the features they mentioned for their perfect documentation experience. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so for the recommendations, I'm going to take you through a few of our most critical key takeaways and the top findings that fall under each of those, and then the specific recommendations we made for those findings. I'm only going to cover the most critical ones for now, just for time's sake. But you'll also be able to see some of the direct user comments that were made. The colors here indicate high severity, medium severity, and low severity. So the recommendations are rated according to their severity. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, the search engine is weak and is not useful. They want a strong search engine. So what's keywords and phrases to search for is not intuitive. Search returns too many results. The ranking system is not intuitive. The tools and filters are not what they're familiar with and what they're used to. So our recommendation is that in the next content delivery platform, we implement a faceted search. That's a very big one. That we make sure results are ranked in a clear and useful way, and that the search uses tools that users are familiar with. So a couple of their comments, lots of good information, but I struggle to find it. And the struggle is getting to what I need. The amount of results returned is daunting. So good comments from them. Next slide, please. Okay, users do not have time to read wordy comment. So what this means is they prefer content that they can quickly scan to find what they need. They like information presented in tables and figures and images and screenshots. They prefer numbered steps for procedural info. And that seems like an obvious one, but we found that, okay, a lot of the help is actually, how to do something is buried maybe in a dialogue topic or something. And that was even a specific comment from one of the users. So our recommendations, the highest priority ones are, whenever possible, present information in a scannable structure. So tables, lists, short paragraphs, that kind of thing. Document all procedures as numbered steps, whether they're their own little task topic or not. Implement more cross-referencing within topics and use more screenshots. So those are our high priority recommendations. All right, next slide, please. All right, users need to be taken quickly and directly to the info they need. This relates to the contextual help and context sensitivity. We currently use contextual help, but it was kind of something we were getting away from. And then we found, wait a minute, users really like the contextual help because they like to go to and I observed this a lot. They'll go to an object on the UI and they'll try to click it or right click it and get to an article that's exactly what they need for that object. And we have a lot of this implemented, but our recommendation is not only to continue using contextual help, but to expand the use of it as well. Okay, next slide, please. Having two help resources is confusing to users. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but we have books online, which is our general help, and then we have application help, which is a help file that is specific to whatever application the user is in. They're two different resources. They don't really cross-reference, although we can take topics from one and put it in the other, but they can't cross-reference to the, from file to file. So users found this very confusing. They don't like that it's separate. A lot of them, several of them weren't even aware that they were separate. So that recommendation is at some point to move to using only one resource for books online and app help. Next slide. The content is not always complete. All right, so often topics do not contain or reference all the necessary supporting information. So our recommendations are to enhance cross-referencing between topics, and having a one resource for help would definitely support optimal cross-referencing. We also are going to be implementing usability heuristics and peer reviews within our team to help ensure that our content is complete, that it has all the supporting information it needs, or at least references that information. Next slide. All right, and this is just a summary of the recommendations. It's categorized by various features of the help. We've gone over most of the high priority ones, so you can kind of see some of the lower priority ones. A couple of things were the launching experience. We had few findings where terminology and icons were not consistent across all applications for the help. The term books online was actually odd to them, a bit confusing, and let's see, and then bookmarks index, some things there. Communication with users was interesting. They asked that they would like a way to submit feedback to us about the help, which I think would be great, and then we could make more immediate, improvements. And then they also talked about implementing a discussion forum where users can communicate with each other and ask each other, hey, what about this? Or can you find this in the help, or something like that? Okay, next page. All right, so what do we do now? Our next steps right now, currently in PI 12, we are beginning to implement some improvements to the content and the content structure, which includes things like the scannable structure, organization, numbered steps, more screenshots, improving our titles, things like that. We're also testing alternative tools for delivering the content. Right now we use Microsoft HTML help, which is delivered as chum files. And as you probably know, and as we found out, it's a weak tool, and it's pretty outdated. So we are looking at some alternatives for how to deliver our content. In PI 13, we plan to begin at least developing a taxonomy or classification system for a faceted search when we are eventually able to implement a faceted search. We will be working on developing our usability heuristic evaluation and our peer review process. And then in PI 14, we intend to roll out our usability heuristics and peer review process and actually begin using it in our team. We also will hope to finalize the taxonomy for the faceted search. And we'd like to, at that point, to begin revising existing content for the improvements that we can make to the content and the organization. That will be some big projects for existing content. And then we have a recommendations backlog, because these things in the first list, these are all dependencies on having a new content delivery tool, something different than Microsoft HTML help. So a lot of these are high priority, but they can't actually be implemented with the current tool we have. So that's again why we're testing a new tool. But they are on our list to be high priorities, and we do want to make them happen. The ones at the bottom, cross-team dependencies, these are things recommendations that we would need help from other teams or input from other teams like marketing or dev or user experience. And we just haven't yet determined how to move forward with those. So we'll be working on that as well. And then we intend to conduct periodic usability testing. We don't want this just to be a one-off thing. We will try to, we're not quite sure how we're going to do it yet, but some ideas are to test specific areas of content like DeltaV Live or Getting Started or DeltaV Virtual Studio. We could test new areas of content as they're developed, maybe feature pack content or areas known to have problems. Okay, next slide. So just to summarize what we found, participants could not quickly find the information they were looking for, and they found the help difficult to navigate. So we want to improve that. Many of the tools provided with Microsoft HTML help were not useful because they were either not intuitive or they were weak. And users did like that the help had extensive content, but found the paragraph style difficult to scan quickly. And that's it. So if we're going to have a question and answer time here, but if you have questions later, please contact myself or Carrie, I guess, for questions. So at this point, are there any questions?
Just unmute yourself if you have questions. We are going to have maybe 5 minutes.
Allison, what platforms are you considering right now for moving to?
Right now, we've looked at two. One is called Fluid Topics, and one is called Zoom In. And so those are the two we're looking at. Both of them, I think we would be able to somehow integrate with the content management system that we currently use. So those are the two we're looking at right now. And they seem promising.
Hey, Allison?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I missed it, but one of the issues I find sometimes with the help is the order, the most relevant. Or
yes.
Did they comment on that?
You're talking about the search results and how they're ranked when you search for something?
Correct.
Yeah, that was that was commented on a lot. So that is definitely something that we want to improve. Yes. And definitely is in our recommendations.
Allison, will you be doing another follow-up to this once you kind of settle on something to see what the users think of the new tool?
Well, yeah, probably. As I said, we're going to conduct periodic usability testing, and since we don't have that tool in place yet, I don't think we want to make a decision on what the next test will be. But absolutely, once we've implemented that and move things into that system, then yes, I think we would probably want to test that as well.
Allison, you realize periodic could be every 25 years.
That's not our intention. We kind of like to be able to do it for every feature pack. I don't know how feasible that is yet. UX team was absolutely wonderful. Grace and Aaron both worked so well with us. And we hope the next time we might be able to do just, a little more on our own, but they'll always be there to help us. But yeah, we're just going to have to see, because it did take quite some time to do this. There is I have an actual usability test report on the PSS Technology SharePoint site under user documentation. I can put the link in the chat if you'd like. It's much more extensive than this presentation. It's got all of the details, all of the comments from users and observations and stuff, if you're interested in seeing that.
All right, any last question here?
I've got a question that's somewhat related, and that is, it seems like more and more applications and software are turning toward video tutorials to supplement their help. Is that something that we've looked at, or you've talked with customers about?
Yes, we did. We did ask them about that kind of thing, and they did comment on, it would be nice to have various multimedia formats, such as videos. The content delivery tools we're looking at do have a way to do that, on both online and offline. So if we used embedded videos, we'd be able to do it offline. So that option is there. It takes, I think videos would take, I think time is an issue with making the videos as well, but that I think when we move to a new tool, that option will likely be there. That's what we're hoping. And certainly GIFs, however you say that, that will be something that we'll be able to include, which currently we can't do that, but that will be a really good option for us.
Is the Ed Center concerned that if we make this too good, they'll be out of a job?
They didn't seem concerned. They were so willing to help us and let us come in and talk to the classes and get volunteers. They were great.
I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but was there any consideration to having help online on the internet?
Yes, that wasn't a high priority recommendation, it is in the slides. I just didn't really talk about it. We did ask them about internet access, and a lot of them said they have access to the internet when they're not on a DeltaV machine, so their mobile phone or their own laptop or whatever. And a lot of them said they would like to have that access to both. I think eventually that may happen. It's just the time frame is unknown right now.